Matthew 15, verses 21 to 28. Jesus left that place and went to the district of Tyre and Sidon. Just then, a Canaanite woman from that region came out and started shouting, "Have mercy on me, Lord, Son of David. My daughter is tormented by a demon." But he did not answer her at all. And his disciples came and urged him, saying, "Send her away, for she keeps shouting after us." He answered, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." But she came and knelt before him, saying, "Lord, help me." Jesus answered, "It's not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs." She said, "Yes, Lord. Yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." Then Jesus answered her, "Woman, great is your faith. Let it be done for you as you wish." And her daughter was healed instantly.
I've entitled this morning's message as Jesus takes a holiday and we learn how to pray. Yeah, Jesus takes a holiday and we learn how to pray. And I've just got 5 brief things that I want to talk about. Firstly, why would Jesus wander up the coast of Lebanon? That seems a strange place for him to go to. Did he only come for the lost sheep of Israel, as he said to the Canaanite woman? And then look at it from the 3 perspectives of the different characters in the story, from the disciples, from Jesus's point of view, and from the woman's point of view. So it's a bit of a strange place for Jesus to go to up the coast of Lebanon. The Canaanites were the people that God told Joshua to drive out of the land so that there'd be no memory of all the bad things that they did. But Joshua grew old before he'd completed the task. And so if you look at Judges 3, God said he left a remnant of the Canaanite people to test whether the children of Israel would follow the law. So he left them there doing all their bad things as a test for the people of Israel. And when we read Israel in the Bible, we're not thinking of the modern day country of Israel, we're thinking of the descendants of Jacob. God gave Jacob another name, Israel. So why would Jesus go up there? Well, they weren't all bad things associated with Canaan. There were some good things. King Hiram of Tyre was a great friend of King David, and all the timber for the first temple came from there and supplied by King Hiram. And when Ezra wanted to build the second temple, all the timber came from there again. And when Elijah needed somewhere to hide, he went up to stay with the widow of Zarephath. And some of the book of Proverbs is thought to be from Phoenician literature and Phoenician inspiration. So there were a lot of interesting good things that Jesus wanted perhaps to see. And I think this gives us a rare insight on Jesus as a person. He'd finished his ministry in Galilee. The next thing that was going to happen was the transfiguration and his march to Jerusalem. And this was a little bit of free time he had for himself. And he wanted to see the road that Elijah took, and he wanted to see the Mediterranean, and perhaps say to his disciples, "Look, you were fishing in Galilee, but after I've gone, you will be fishing in a bigger sea. You will be fishing for men in the Mediterranean that you can see as you look out of there." So I do think this was the intention of Jesus, to have a brief holiday. That's the first point. The second point, did he only come from the children of Israel, as he said? And I think what we need to understand primarily about Jesus' mission on earth is that he came to fulfill all the Old Testament prophecy concerning himself. So So in that sense, yes, he did come only for the children of Israel, because they were supposed to have proclaimed God's message throughout the world and been an example of God the Father, but they failed in that, and they needed a Messiah. So yes, he did come specifically for the children of Israel. But in the course of doing that, I am sure that many Gentiles also listened to his ministry as well. He grew up in a very cosmopolitan part of the world, Galilee, lots of foreigners there. We read in Mark chapter 3 that many people from Sidon and Tyre came to listen to Jesus. And so I'm sure there were many people that benefited from Jesus's ministry other than the Jewish people. Because I have heard people use this verse and say, oh no, Jesus never spoke to the Gentiles. He only went to the Jews. But I think as part of that, there were Gentiles listening. They could join in as well, even though they weren't part of the main purpose. All right, so the characters of the story, what do we learn from them? The disciples. Disciples don't come out very well in this story, really. They've come from a bit of peace and quiet, and they say, oh, goodness me, Jesus, send her away. She's disturbing our peace. And that seems to be their attitude at this time, because if you think back to the previous chapter and the feeding of the 5,000, what do they say to Jesus about providing the food? Oh, send them away. You know, so it seems to be their standard response at the moment at this point of the ministry, whereas perhaps Jesus was keeping quiet to see what they were going to do. You know, were they going to make a suggestion? But no, the disciples come out quite badly, really. And when you get to the end of the story, who has the peace that the disciples were looking for? It's the woman. It's not the disciples that have the peace at the end of the story, isn't it? So that's the disciples. They're lacking in faith at the moment. Jesus. How does Jesus behave in this story? Well, first of all, he's silent. He's silent, doesn't say a word. And we might imagine that he's on the phone to his dad. Dad, I'm here in Canaan. What do I do with this Canaanite woman that's come to see me? But I don't think he needed to do that. I think he knew what he was going to do already. Because if we'd read some of the Old Testament lectionary readings for today, we'd have come across Isaiah 56 and verse 1 as part of our readings. And that says, do the right thing. Do the right thing. So I think Jesus knew what the outcome was going to be. He was going to do the right thing, which was to heal this woman. But the conversation is drawing out her faith. It's getting her to say more and more each time. And we might think of his comments about the dogs as very derogatory and even racist or sexist. But what we don't know when we read the Bible is we don't know what tone of voice Jesus said those words in. We don't know whether he said them nastily. We don't know whether he said them with a big smile on his face and a glint in his eye. We don't know whether he said them lovingly. We don't know. In fact, in Greek, there's no punctuation. So we might have even said this as a question, but the translators have reproduced it as a statement. So we don't know. But most of the commentators think that he didn't mean it in a derogatory way. He meant it to try and cajole the woman into expanding her faith and expanding what she was going to say. And if you want to think of a similar conversation he had, then maybe think about the conversation he had with Martha when he came and Lazarus was in the tomb. And Martha came out and he had a conversation with Martha to grow her faith. And I think that's what he was doing here. And then we turn to the woman. And the woman is really the star of the story this morning. So that's why I've left her to the end, really. Because There were many points in the story where she might have given up and gone away, but she didn't. She was very focused, very focused. She made the effort to travel to Jesus. Do we make the effort to come to Jesus in prayer? She knew exactly what she wanted, specifically. She wanted her daughter healed of the demon. Do we come to Jesus in prayer sometimes and we're very vague, God bless, or and it's kind of, well, you decide, God, what's the best thing. But she knew what she wanted. She was very specific. She wasn't asking for herself. She was asking for somebody else, her daughter. I'm sure Jesus is more interested in us when we come and ask for things for other people rather than ask for things for ourselves. She came in faith. She never doubted. Whatever the rebuff of the silence of the disciple of Jesus, the griping of the disciples, she persisted in faith. She never questioned Jesus's ability to heal her daughter. She never said, if you can. She said, she believed that God in Jesus could do this. Yeah. She trusted in Jesus's authority. She was meek. She called him Lord twice. She called him the Son of David, recognizing him as the Messiah of the Jews. She was persistent. She didn't give up. She realized that she needed the grace of God. She had no entitlement to anything herself. She was beyond the pale, if you like. So she recognizes that Jesus has come primarily for the Jewish people. But she points out that the family dogs at home rely on the scraps from the family table. And before you could go to Tesco and buy lots of pet food, that's what your pet at home would have. It would have the leftovers from the meal. That's what, I go to Romania a lot, that's what dogs in Romania do. They have the leftovers from what you've eaten. And if they're not hungry, they'll go and bury it for later. And if they are hungry, they'll eat it. So I don't think it's a derogatory thing about the dog. We're not talking about a stray dog outside. We're talking about the family pet inside. So she accepts maybe her role as a family pet. So she publicly identifies Jesus as the Messiah. That was the other thing I was thinking. One of the things I've been thinking this week is when God answers your prayer and does something good, how do we react? Do we tell the story and then say, God, I was lucky. Well, that was a bit of good fortune, wasn't it? Or do we think, well, maybe I did that through my own strength and my own effort? But she gave the glory to Jesus. And I think that's one of the things we need to do in our prayer life is when we get a prayer answered, give glory to God and not keep quiet about it. So those are the things that I'd like us to take away in the week ahead. The service sheet says she was bold, and that we need to be bold as well. And I've been thinking about that in the week, and I've been thinking it's very well to be bold in the right thing, in the right way. But to be bold with the wrong thing, in the wrong way, is not an asset. So although it's not in this passage, if you want to be bold, then read the Bible and find a promise from God. And take that promise to God and say to God, look here, this is a promise that you have given me. And that is a guide for you as to how you can be bold in your prayers and have Jesus bless you too. Amen. Thank you for listening. God bless you.